All right, people of the internet, welcome to Modern Day Debate. We are live now. Apparently, there's a delay on the YouTube, so sorry about that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have TJump debating the Muslim apologist, and we're going to be debating whether or not Muhammad's marriage to Aisha was moral. We are starting right now. Tom, at your first word, I will start your timer.
All right. So the topic today is being married to a 6-year-old girl and consummating that marriage with a 9-year-old girl, pedophile. And yes, it is. It's pedophilia. So Muhammad was in fact immoral. And as Surah 33 verse 21 states, Muhammad is the pattern of conduct for all Muslims. And so this is why so many Muslims around the world are for child marriage, because Muhammad did it. And so everyone else is allowed to do it too, which is why Islam is an immoral religion. So the heart of the issue is, what are the approaches that Muslims can take to try to placate this obviously immoral statement that is in the Quran? There are several approaches they can take. The primary three are: one is to claim that she was actually older, that wasn't actually 9, but this is false. Aisha, they claim that Aisha was actually 16 or 17 or maybe even older, and her pattern of her conduct based on her pattern of conduct. Unfortunately for the proponents of the claim that Aisha was older, defense, this only works in an atmosphere of total ignorance of someone who's never read any of the Muslim sources related to Aisha. Once you start reading Islam's most trusted sources, and you find the Hadith, and after the Hadith, it says clearly that Aisha was 9 years old when Muhammad had sex with her, and you find any of those sources saying, if you try to find any of those sources saying she was 16 or 18, there are none of them. There's zero sources in the Quran ever say that, ever. There are many that say she was 9. So based on the Quran, based on Hadiths, she was 9. So if we take, for example, Sahih al-Bukhari 5158, narrated Irwa, the Prophet wrote, the marriage contracted with Aisha while she was 6 years old, and consummated his marriage with her while she was 9 years old, and remained with him for 9 years till death. See also Sahih Bukhari 3894, 3896, 5133, and 5134, which all agree that Aisha was 9 years old when Muhammad had sex with her. Sahih Muslims 3311, Aisha reports that Allah Apostle married her when she was 7 years old, and she was taken to his house as a bride when she was 9, and her dolls were with her at that time. Sahih Muslims 3309 and 3310, which agree that Aisha was 9 years old when Muhammad had sex with her. And 2116 narrated Aisha, the messenger of Allah married me when I was, narrated by Aisha, when I was 7 years old, or 7 or 6 year old, and he had intercourse with me when I was 9 years old. Also see Abdu Dahabi 4915, 4916, 4917, 4918, which all agree that Aisha was, you guessed it, 9 years old when Muhammad had sex with her. In Nasai 3380, it was narrated that Aisha said, the messenger of Allah married me when I was 6, and consummated that marriage with me when I was 9, and I used to play with dolls. See also Sunnah Udesi 3257, 3258, 3259, 3260, and 3381, which all agree that Aisha was once again 9 years old when Muhammad had sex with her. Now we can continue going through the Sunnah Ibn Majah, the history of Atari, and so on, which all agree that Aisha was 9 years old when Muhammad had sex with her. But instead of continuing on with more sources that Aisha was 9 years old, why don't we just find the sources that say she was 16 or 18? Because there aren't any. There are 0 of them. None of them say that. So to quote from Ibn Kathir, one of the most respected Islamic scholars of all time, in his 4-volume biography, Muhammad Ibn Kathir quotes Irwa ibn al-Zubair, Aisha's nephew, who says that Aisha was 9 years old when Muhammad consummated his marriage, and with her, after quoting Irwa on the age of Aisha's, Ibn Kathir says, this statement has contracted marriage with Aisha when she was 6, thereafter consummated it with her when she was 9. is not disputed by anyone and is well established in the Sahih collections of tradition and elsewhere. When scholars disagreed on the issue, Ibn Kathir would draw attention to the disagreement, but when it comes to Muhammad having sex with Aisha when she was 9 years old, Imam Kathir says that it is not disputed by anyone. Ibn Kathir would roll over in his grave if he heard modern Muslim scholars and apologists saying that Aisha was actually 16 or 18 to make Muslims feel better about their prophet. I think our Muslim friends should take the advice of Shaki Yusur Qadi, who rebuked Muslims who lie about the age of Aisha, and he said Muslims don't apologize for the truth and don't distort the truth. There are Muslims that tried to deny this, that he didn't marry Aisha as young as that. And look, don't lie for the sake of our religion, for Allah as the truth, and we're not going to cover up the truth if people find out embarrassing things about it. So I will conclude there and let my opponent go.
All right. Thank you so much, Tom, for that opening statement. We will go ahead and kick it over to the Muslim apologist. At your first word, I will start your timer, sir.
All right, thank you. So I'll begin with saying, Assalamu ala manittaba al-huda. So I begin this statement with all absolute praise to the one true God of Abraham and his last messenger, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursalin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Amma ba'd. So the topic today was Muhammad's marriage to Aisha moral. Okay, so this issue has been used and abused by Christian polemicists, apostates, Islamophobes, and every group imaginable who has an axe to grind against Islam, which is of course hardly surprising because Islam is currently the fastest growing religion in the world. And according to Pew Research, by 2050, Islam will surpass Christianity as the largest religion globally. On the character and the morals of the Prophet himself, the well-known Orientalist W. Montgomery Watt said, in his day and generation, Muhammad was a social reformer, indeed a reformer even in the sphere of morals. He created a new system of social security and a new family structure, both of which were a vast improvement on what went before. In this way, he adapted for settled communities all that was best in the morality of the nomad and established a religious and a social framework for the life of the six of the human race today. That is not the work of a traitor or a leecher. The historian Thomas Carlyle said, our current hypothesis about Muhammad, that he was a scheming impostor, a falsehood incarnate, that his religion is a mere mass of quackery and fatuity, begins really to be now untenable to anyone. The lies which well-meaning zeal has heaped around this man are disgraceful to ourselves only. So the evidence for Aisha being betrothed at 6 years old and her marriage consummated at 9 years old can be found in authentic hadith collections. And I do not feel that there is any need to cite these hadiths or object to their historicity. Going back to the issue at hand, we must first of all understand that this marriage took place roughly 1,400 years ago. As such, this marriage must be evaluated based on the standards of that time period, while keeping in mind that we should not commit the logical fallacy of presentism. So the definition of presentism is thinking about history from an exclusively presentist point of view, which fails to take into account that at the time in which historical events occur, those involved did not enjoy the benefit of hindsight that has informed our present perspective. Presentism invites us to dismiss the poor decisions made by previous generations as having been based on their failure to anticipate the long-term consequences of their deeds. Yet, to fully understand a historical event, we must view it not only with the benefit of hindsight, but also in the more limited context of its own times. So this can be easily determined by asking a series of questions, which I will propose as follows. First question, was Aisha's marriage objected to by the Prophet's contemporaries or even by her own parents? Her answer is no, it was not. Nobody objected to this marriage. None of the contemporary enemies of the Prophet ﷺ ever used this issue as a slight against the Prophet, simply because it was a non-issue. This problem only came about in the 20th century, and the first person to raise this issue as an objection to the character of the Prophet ﷺ was Sir William Whyte, a British Orientalist with Christian evangelical tendencies. Now the second question. Did Aisha demonstrate any signs of abuse while she was in the household of the Prophet till the day he passed away? Again, the answer is no. According to the hadith and seerah, or biographical material that we have, Aisha was a happy and outgoing woman. In fact, the record suggests that she spoke her mind and was unafraid to voice out her dissatisfaction, even to the Prophet ﷺ himself, if she were unhappy about a certain issue which affects her. In the years after the passing of the Prophet, she became renowned as a teacher of Islam, and decades later, she even led an army against the Caliph Ali radiallahu anh. This certainly does not sound like an abused, manipulated person who was forcibly married off against her will when she was younger. Now the third question. Was it a common practice at the time to marry at such a young age? The answer is yes. It was a common practice of the era. This is determined by when women has attained puberty. And how do we know that a woman has reached puberty? By experiencing her first menstruation. Under Islamic law, a woman can only be legally married after she has attained puberty. Now, Neil Postman, a former professor at the New York University, wrote the book, The Disappearance of Childhood. In it, he argues that childhood was one of the great inventions of the Renaissance, just like any other social structure. Its development was closely correlated with the written tradition and development of primary schools as opposed to the oral tradition in the Middle Ages. So he states, in an oral world, there is not much of a concept of an adult, and therefore even less of a child. And that is why in all the sources, one finds that in the Middle Ages, childhood ended at age 7. Why 7? Because that is the age at which children have command over speech. They can say and understand what adults can say and understand. They are able to know all secrets of the tongue, which are the only secrets they need to know. And this helps us to explain why the Catholic Church designated age 7 as the age at which one was assumed to know the difference between right and wrong, the age of reason. It also helps us to explain why, until the 17th century, the words used to denote young males could refer to men of 30, 40, or 50. For there were no such word in French, in German, or in English for a young male between the ages of 7 and 16. The word child expressed kinship, not an age. But most of all, the oralism of the Middle Ages helps us to explain why there were no primary schools. For where biology determines communication competence, there is no need for such schools. And if we look at the United States in 1930, thousands of boys and girls married before the age of 14. It was reported that 1,311 girls in east-south central area of the United States married below the age of 14. So now this brings us to our fourth question. Are there examples of young marriages throughout history? What was the age of consent? So let us look at history and how marriage was practiced in earlier times before the 20th century. We have a long list of ancient kings and queens and individuals from Asia, Europe, Africa, and the Middle East being married off at an age as young as 7 years old. So here are a few examples. According to the Bible, Rebecca was married off to Isaac, the father of the Jews, when she was 3 years old. Mary, the mother of Jesus in the New Testament, was 12 years old when she got married to Joseph, who was 90 years old. Akhenaten, she was around 16 years old, was married to her half-brother Tutankhamun, aged around 10 years old, in about 1332 BCE. Judith of Flanders, she was around 12 years old. She married Ethelwulf, king of Wessex, who was 61 years old. Ecgtheow of Wessex, who was 16 years old, married to Charles the Simple, king of West Francia, in 919. Isabella of Jerusalem, aged 10 years old, married Humphrey IV of Toron, who was aged around 17 years old in 1183. and they had betrothed when Isabella was 8 years old. Okay, Isabella of Valois, she was 6 years old. She married King Richard II of England, who was 29 years old. Eleanor of England, daughter of Eleanor of Aquitaine and Henry II of England, she married 15-year-old Alfonso VIII of Castile in 1170 when she was 9 years old. A more contemporary example, Miranelli Devi, who was aged around 9 to 11 years old, she married Rabindranath Tagore, who was 22 years old in 1883. So there's a whole list of this in Wikipedia. And I think the point has been made that young marriages were not considered to be problematic until very recently in the 20th century. Now the fifth and final question. All right. Could the Prophet's marriage to Aisha in any way, shape, or form be considered as pedophilia? Okay. So please read the definition of what is a pedophile. And historical records does not at all suggest that the Prophet ﷺ met this criteria. Okay. Because he only had one marriage with a virgin, which was Aisha. His other wives were all widows. They do not fit a definition of a pedophile. So in conclusion, we can therefore surmise that the marriage of Aisha to the Prophet was part of a practice totally congruent with his time period. And based on what I've already said, there is nothing to suggest that this marriage was immoral. And with that, I end my opening statement. Without lies, Islam thrives. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you so much for your opening statement, sir. And with that, we will go ahead and open
pause.
up
My phone is beeping at me. 1 second.
No problem. We're going to kick it into the open discussion in just a second. But before we do that, I just want to let everybody know that we are a neutral platform hosting debates on science, religion, and politics. And we want you to feel welcome no matter what walk of life you're from. And if you have a question or a comment for one of tonight's debaters, fire into the old live chat and tag me at Modern Day Debate. Super chats will go to the top of the list. All we ask is that you keep it civil and attack the argument and not the person. Insults will not be read. Want to let you guys know that there's going to be an after show on my channel that you guys can check out. The link will be in the description shortly. And with that, I believe that, oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to let you guys know about is the debate coming up tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern. It's going to be the Red Pill on trial. We're going to have Carissa and Jackson versus PWF and Sarah, and that's going to be at 8 p.m. They're going to be debating, is dating harder for men? So go ahead and like and subscribe and check that out if you would, if you find that interesting. And with that, we will go ahead and open up the open discussion. Gentlemen, at your first word, the floor will be all yours.
So I want to start with the last question, which was like the definition of pedophilia. Definition is where the preference for sexual activity with a prepubescent child or children. Prepubescent is defined as ages 9 to 12. Aisha was 9. That makes him a pedophile.
I was actually going to read the definition from the MSD Manual for the Consumer. So the full definition of a pedophile is defined as having had repeated, intense, sexually arousing fantasies, urges, or behaviors involving a child or children, usually aged 13 years or under. Pedophilia is also medically defined as a mental disorder. Many pedophiles have or developed a substance use disorder or dependence and depression. They often come from dysfunctional families, and marital conflict is common. Many were sexually abused as children. So please tell me if the Prophet fits this criteria.
Yes, because being a pedophile doesn't require actual intentions. Like if you had sex with a child, even if you aren't attracted to them, you're still a pedophile.
The Prophet was sexually abused as a child.
Abused. It has nothing to do with abuse. If you have sex with a child,
here in the MSD manual.
Stop talking. No, shut up.
Okay, hold on, guys.
You shut up, all right? You shut up.
Hold on.
Listen to what I say.
No, I get to answer. You asked a question. I get to answer the question.
You're not answering the question. I just said
what is the question?
What is the question? And dependence and depression. So I ask you, where
none of that matters. No. So yes, the only criterion of what it requires to be a pedophile is you had sexual activity with a prepubescent child. That's it. Intention doesn't. Stop talking over me. Stop talking.
Let's let Tom finish his thought, and then you can reply.
Stop talking.
Can you guys hear me?
Stop talking. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay.
So the only thing that makes you a pedophile is if you had sexual activity with a child. I don't care about your intentions. I don't care about your desires. If you had sexual activity with a child, you're going to prison because you're a pedophile. That's it. There's no psychological. Don't care. Muhammad had sex with a 9-year-old girl. He is a pedophile. Done.
Okay, let's go with your very narrow definition of pedophilia. answer this question, please. Are you a moral objectionist or
Objectivist?
subjective?
Objectivist? Yes, I'm a moral objectivist.
If you are an objectivist, then tell me why no one during the time of the Prophet objected to this marriage.
I did not understand that sentence.
Why did no one, his contemporaries, during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, ever objected to this marriage? Because you said that morality is objective.
Well, they did actually. Aisha's father did, but well, so moral objectivism is the position that facts are true independent of what anybody thinks. So asking me why didn't a whole bunch of subjective people not disagree doesn't make a difference to moral objectivism. It's still going to be wrong whether or not his contemporaries agree.
That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, if morality is objective, if morality is objective, then it should be standardized throughout all periods. Then everyone should have agreed.
No, like it's an objective fact. It's an objective fact the world is round. One sec. It's an objective fact the world is round. Not everyone agrees. Things that are objectively true are not objectively true because people agree. They're objectively true because they have a truth value independent of any opinions. It means it doesn't matter whether people agree. That's what objective means. Subjective means it's true contingent on opinions. So if you're thinking, well, why the society at the time didn't object, and you think that's fine, that's subjective morality. That's relative morality. If you think morality is objective, that means it's always wrong to do things, even if people don't know it's wrong. So like many, many years ago, most people thought slavery was just fine. They were wrong. They were all wrong. Everybody in that society who was totally fine with slavery were all wrong. It was immoral, whether they realized it or not. So the number of people who realize it doesn't matter to objective morality, because objective means truth statements that are independent of what people think.
Okay, all right. If that's your opinion,
well, it's the dictionary definition of objective. Subjective is contingent on opinions. Objective is
moral objectivity, not the definition of objectivity. Okay, so I said moral objectivity. Morality.
Yeah, moral objectivity is the position that the truth values of moral statements is independent of any opinion.
Still doesn't make sense to me. Okay, but
I don't.
Yeah, I was thinking of a question. I can't. Give me a moment,
okay.
please. So what about the marriages during the time of the ancient times? So
they're all pedophiles. They're all immoral.
Oh, really? They're all pedophiles. So you just admitted that the whole of Europe was practicing pedophilia.
Sure. Yes, people in the past did lots of immoral things, and they were all immoral people. Yep. If you have sex with a child who is 9 years old, you are a pedophile and you are immoral at any time, at any point in history. Anytime, immoral. I don't care what the society thinks, you're still immoral.
But then you're committing the fallacy of presentism.
No, so presentism is using the present moments to judge things. I'm not using the present moment. I'm using objective morality. No.
You just told me that the whole of Europe was practicing pedophilia.
So there's a difference between using a present cultural context to judge things and using an objective standard to judge things. If you're using an objective standard to judge things, that is not the same as a subjective modern social context. Presentism is using a modern social context to judge the past. That would be a fallacy. Yes, if you have an objective standard that is independent of all time, then it doesn't matter if it's now or then. The objective standard applies to everything at all times equally.
I still think that you're using the fallacy of presentism, because you just told me that the whole of Europe is practicing pedophilism. You just told me that the contemporaries of the Prophet ﷺ were also pedophiles. You're telling me that everyone else before the 20th century were all pedophiles.
Let me try to explain this a little differently.
That's basically what you're telling me, right?
No. Let me try to explain this a little differently. So
I'm using your own standard against you, Tom.
No, I'm not using presentism. I'm trying to explain to you why I'm not using presentism, to try to get you to understand. Like today, when physicists do math, they use general and special relativity. So if they're calculating the speed of light.
We're not talking about science. We're talking about morality.
Just shush.
Let him finish.
So if we go back 300 years, when people were using Newtonian mechanics, And we're comparing their numbers. They say that the speed of light is 299 point something something. They were wrong because we can use general relativity, which is more accurate. Now, that's not using presentism. We're not just using a random social construct that we've made up to assess that they're wrong. We have a more accurate system that understands reality better than they do. And so there's a difference between presentism, which is using a cultural belief contingent on the society to judge other societies' cultural beliefs, and using an objective fact about reality, which can be demonstrated to show that they did it wrong in the past. Those are two different things. Does that make sense? There's facts.
You're still using presentism. You're judging. Basically, what you're doing, you're judging the history. You're judging history based on what we are doing now. Yes, of course. Today we don't.
Just to clarify, when people were doing Newtonian mechanics,
Tom, let him finish.
Let me finish.
No, when people were doing Newtonian mechanics, were they wrong?
Let me finish.
When people were doing Newtonian mechanics, were they wrong?
Tom, come on.
I'm not interested in a statement. When people were doing Newtonian mechanics, were they wrong? Yes or no?
All right. Well, if you don't want to answer that, just go ahead and finish your question then.
I'm just going to finish the statement, all right?
No, your question is presentism. If you say people doing Newtonian mechanics were wrong, are you doing presentism?
I don't understand your question. Okay. So anyway,
Newtonian mechanics, the past, people doing math in the past, were they wrong?
No, they were not wrong. Why would they be wrong?
So why
would they be wrong?
So the calculations of Newtonian mechanics is incorrect. It does not describe things accurately. That's why we switched to general relativity. Math in the past, they got it wrong. Today we get it right. They were limited
by the knowledge of their time. So why would it be wrong? You know?
Because it does not describe reality. So if you try to describe the orbit of the moon with
Newtonian
gravity, it's wrong.
Your example is about mathematics and facts. It's not about morality. Morality is about
no. Morality is a fact. That's what objective morality means. If you believe in objective morality, you believe morality is fact, just like physics is fact. That's what objective morality means.
Of course, physics are facts, but I'm talking about morality.
Yes, morality is a fact. Morality, objective morality, moral facts are facts, just like physics is facts.
You're still not making the point. You still don't get
people in the audience. Did what I say just make sense? Was the connection between objective and facts and physics? Did that make sense to you guys? My chat is saying, yeah. My chat makes sense. Kaz, did my analogy make sense to you?
Of course, but I'm neutral.
Doesn't make any sense to me. You're still using presentism upon a culture that happened 1,400 years ago. Okay, you're judging history based on what we are practicing now, and there are certain things in the past which would be considered immoral back then.
I got another idea. In the past, people thought objects that were heavier than air couldn't fly. Were they wrong?
I guess so. Yeah. So
yes. So today we know objects that are heavier than air can fly. Planes can fly, but in the past they thought they couldn't. Is that presentism or is that a fact?
That's fact. That's not presentism.
Right. So there are these things called facts that people in the past could just have been wrong about, right? And so one of those could be morality. They could have been wrong about morality in the past, right?
No, not necessarily so. No.
Are you a moral relativist?
I'm a moral realist.
Okay, so moral realism means that there are certain moral truths that are true objectively, meaning independent of time, right? Independent of opinion, like facts in physics. They're true like facts of physics, right?
Yeah, sure.
So if there's a fact of physics, just like there's a fact of morality, and people in the past didn't believe that fact, they would be wrong, right?
I guess so. Yeah, that would be the reasonable conclusion to make. Yeah,
right. But so moral realism says there is some moral facts, and if people in the past
you still haven't proven, but that still doesn't prove that the Prophet's marriage to Aisha was wrong. Okay, all right. It doesn't. It really doesn't. Okay.
So if
because you're still judging by what we are doing now. okay, upon history. It's really that simple. Okay.
So one of these moral facts, one of these objective moral facts is sex with people who can't consent is immoral. People who are children don't have intellectual ability to consent, therefore having sex to them is immoral. That's what this is, one of those objective moral truths that's true independent of
You were
time.
on record, dude. You were on record saying that incest is okay, and that necrophilia
incest with
is
consenting
okay.
adults. Incest with
Yes,
consenting
with
adults
consent,
is okay.
I consider those things to be immoral. Okay,
You're
I
wrong.
consider those things to be immoral. That's because you are basing on your current tradition and your
remember,
current
objective. I believe in objective morality. That means I believe in a system independent of time.
But you're wrong. You're still wrong. To me, you're wrong. But to you, you're right.
So your moral system says pedophilia is okay. Mine says it's not okay. And we can just let the people in the audience be like, what moral system seems more right there?
It doesn't say. Please correct your information. Islam doesn't say that pedophilia is right. Okay. But you are judging. You are judging your definition of pedophilia is so narrow that you apply it to the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, I just gave you the definition of pedophilia. I just gave you the definition.
Wait. So if we go to a courtroom, if we go to a courtroom, and you had sex with a 9-year-old, are they going to send you to jail and label you a pedophile when they write that down, the crime you committed?
Of course, because our time doesn't allow it. Okay, our current morals doesn't allow it.
So this isn't just my definition. This isn't just a little definition I've made up. This is like the definition of every court in every civilized country in the world, right?
But the thing is, this is only happening now in the modern time. Back in those days, 9 years old, okay,
they were wrong back then.
There was no courtrooms. Okay, there were no courtrooms, Tom. Right? Okay, 9 years old, 9 years old women were considered to be childbearing, and they need to marry, okay, in order to survive. Okay, you are an atheist, right? You believe in evolutionary biology?
What?
Do you believe in the evolution in survival of the fittest?
I believe in evolution. Yes.
What about survival of the fittest?
No, that's a shorthand for natural selection.
Okay, fine. Okay, I'll rephrase it. Okay, what about sustaining the progeny, continuing the line, continuing the biological line? Do you believe that?
It's not moral nor immoral. There's no imperative to do that. No.
Okay, good. All right. So if someone back in those days, 1,400 years ago, if their if the mortality rate is such that they won't live up to 40 years old or 50 years old, would it be okay for them to have progeny before that?
No, if the intellectual capability of those who they were having sex with,
you're not answering the question.
Didn't have. Well, I'm trying to answer. You asked like if they only live to 40, would it be okay for them to have sex with people of their species below that age? That's your question, right?
Pretty much, yes.
Yes. So the answer is it's only moral if they have the intellectual capability to consent, wherever that age is. So it's only moral if they are intellectually developed enough to have the capability to consent.
Aisha's parents and Aisha herself consented to the marriage. What do you say to that?
She's 9. You can't consent when you're a child. That's literally a part of the law.
So you're in denial because the records say that she consented to the marriage. You're in denial.
No.
Close. Finish. I won the debate.
So yeah, you can claim that, like, if you claim a child consented to sex, you still go to jail. That doesn't mean the fact that they consented.
I think you ignored my definition of what a child is, because I read the definition of what a child is. Right? I quoted Neil Postman. Right? I quoted Neil Postman that in the Middle East. Oh my God. Okay, let me read. Okay, let me please Cass. Is it okay if I read this out?
Okay. Well,
sure.
My definition is a young human being below the age of puberty and below the legal age of majority.
Yes. Can I read out this passage if you're okay
go
with
ahead.
it?
Yes.
Just take.
All right. Okay.
By all means.
Okay. So Neil Postman, in his book The Disappearance of Childhood, he's a former professor at New York University. He says that in an oral world where there is not much of a concept of an adult and therefore even less of a child, and that is why in all sources one finds that in the Middle Ages, childhood ended at age 7. Why 7? Because that is the age at which children have command over speech. They can say and understand what adults can say and understand. Okay, and then the passage just goes on and talks about the attributes of what defines a child back in the day. But basically, people before the 20th century, okay, they don't have this conception of child. Okay, so they do not understand child as anyone below the age of 7. Okay, sorry, above
Yes,
the
and they
age
were
of 7.
idiots because they didn't understand biology or cognitive science or
Yeah,
philosophy or psychology.
Basically, you're just throwing everyone out of the bus, right? So
No, I'm
that's
saying
that's
they
why
didn't
I
understand modern science. Like we understand how the brain and the body develop over time. We understand that children don't have the intellectual capacity to give consent at those ages because their brains haven't developed the ability to rationalize yet. Therefore, we don't count them as rational adults because we know psychologically their brains aren't capable of being rational adults. Back in the past, they didn't know these things. They were ignorant of facts. They didn't know facts. So they made stupid decisions that were wrong because they didn't have the information to know they were wrong.
Presentism all over again. Yes, presentism. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you're doing presentism again.
No, that's those facts things. Those pesky facts things we agreed upon are not presentism. They're just facts.
It's presentism because I just told you that in the Middle Ages they don't consider a 7-year-old to be a child. Okay?
And I already explained that's not presentism. That's a fact.
You're just, like I said, you're just throwing everything under the bus. You deny every single definition I give, and you give your own definition. That's pretty much what you're doing. Okay,
that's not what I'm doing.
That's what you are doing, and
No,
I think the audience can see this, right? The audience can see this, and you making faces and doing this will not change it. All right? That's simple.
Yes, that's we can ask the audience what they think my point was and if it made sense, and we'll find out.
Yeah. So yeah, if you have any questions, go ahead.
Nope, you kind of just admitted I was right on everything. I don't really have anything else to go on.
I didn't concede to anything. You just admitted that you were, you just admitted that anyone below the age of 40, as long as they give consent, can do whatever they want. And we have clear records that Aisha's parents and Aisha herself agreed to them.
I don't think you know what any of the words I used mean. That's probably a problem.
You can insult me however you want, Tom, but you know that I'm right. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. Sorry, Cass, you're muted.
Still muted.
I have too much crap open on my desktop right now. So you had mentioned that the Aisha's parents had consented for her. Can you talk more about how that works? How can a parent consent for a child?
Well, back in the day, like I said before in my presentation, even anyone who has reached puberty are not considered to be children anymore. Okay, and in the adult culture, okay, one must get either the girl's consent or the parents' consent. Okay, so once the parents consented, therefore the marriage goes. But she's also given an opportunity to reject the marriage if once she reaches puberty. Okay, and Aisha, we have the records. She was married off at 6 years old and consummated at 9. She has every right to reject the marriage when she was 9, but she didn't. She moved in with the Prophet, right? So the marriage goes. So that is consent. Okay.
You can't consent unless you have the intellectual capacity to consent. So people who are intellectually handicapped and children, shush.
Hold on. You just gave your explanation. So let Tom finish this.
You're just making up facts. Whoa.
Just let Tom respond to what you just said, please.
Okay, go.
But you can't consent unless you have the intellectual capability to consent, which means children and people who are intellectually handicapped do not have the ability to consent. So even if they say they agree, that doesn't count as consent if they don't have the intellectual capability. And so having sex with them is still immoral. Sorry you didn't know that.
Oh my, I don't know what else to say. I mean, this guy just literally threw everything out what I said out of the bus. Okay, so I already mentioned that,
very true.
Back in the day, there's no such thing as a child. Okay, even if you are a 7-year-old or even you are a 9-year-old. Okay, and it was about survival. It's about It's about that is why I asked you the question, Tom, whether you are okay with anyone marrying at below 40 if the mortality rate is such that it requires them to marry. So the idea back then, back in those days, humans don't last long enough. So that is why they marry very young. And this is a practice that has been going on even before the 20th century. I gave examples of marriages in the ancient times. He just calls them pedophiles. Is that simple, isn't it, to argue this way? But it doesn't change the fact that there's nothing immoral about it, because it was a normal practice at the time. The Prophet's contemporaries, they certainly didn't reject it. They could have used every single excuse to reject his message. He could have used this argument against him, but they did not. Why they did not use this message? They did not use this argument against the Prophet? Because they were doing it. They were doing it, so there was no issues. And it was only until the 20th century where William Moyle started to raise this issue against the Prophet. There were Christian polemicists throughout the ages, Tom. He could, like, for example, John of Damascus was the first Christian polemicist against Islam. He could have used this argument against the Prophet. He could say, oh, the Prophet was a false prophet because he married Aisha when she was 6 years old, and consummated the marriage when she was 9. Why didn't he use this argument, Tom? Why didn't he
was
use
an
this
idiot?
argument?
That's why.
You cannot go around
morality.
and use it as an argument, Tom. That's not an argument. That's emotional.
No,
That's
like if
emotional.
someone didn't make an argument.
Facts. You said you wanted facts. So just give me a fact.
I'm not sure who's
Give me a
talking right
fact.
One of us there's an echo somewhere, but yeah. So if he didn't know a better argument existed to prove Muhammad was a not prophet,
He had all access.
then he was an shush. Then he was an idiot. He was ignorant of the facts of the better argument. So I can make a better argument. Muhammad was a pedophile. That proves he's not the.
So that's your argument. Everyone else were idiots. Everyone were pedophiles during the time. Yes, that's your argument. Fine.
Sure.
Doesn't change anything.
Yep. And yours is, well, at the time they were fine with it, therefore it's perfectly moral. Totally not a justification for literally every crime ever.
I didn't say it was either moral or immoral. I just said it was a practice at the time, but it was certainly not immoral.
Which
I didn't argue for morality. I didn't argue for positiveness of the marriage. I didn't argue for the negativeness of the marriage. I'm very neutral.
I think you just destroyed yourself on that one. So if you're admitting that what people think is
your argument, Tom, your argument is that everyone else were idiots and they were all practicing pedophilia.
So if you think that, if you agree that the fact that all those people thought something or didn't think something is completely independent of whether or not it's moral, then that shows that whether or not they thought or agreed with it is completely irrelevant to the question. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, which that's correct. It is irrelevant, but then you've just wasted like every minute of what you've said because that's all you've brought up is something that's completely irrelevant.
Presentism. Yeah.
Are we done yet?
Well, I guess we could go to Q&A if you really have nothing else to argue about.
I don't think so. I mean, the guy just argued that.
Could you maybe talk about how? I mean, Muslim apologist, you did just say that you didn't have an opinion of whether or not it was moral or immoral. Can you maybe expound upon what you do think about it, especially in like present time?
Yeah, I believe. Yes. Okay. Sorry, Cass. Okay. So basically, I believe as a Muslim, of course, I revere and honor the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay. I believe that he's a true messenger of God. At the same time, okay, the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was a man of his times. He adhered to the cultural mores of his time. Okay. So it's neither moral or immoral. I mean, the Prophet owned slaves. Okay. So the Prophet married more than 4 wives. So the Prophet went to war. Yes. So okay, there are certain things which the Prophet did, which were within the confines of his times, which today will be considered wrong or immoral, okay, by presentism. Okay, so the Prophet had to. The Prophet basically was constrained by the limits of his times. Okay, if the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam were living in our times today, I believe that he probably would not have married Aisha at 6 years old, because not because it was immoral or anything of the sort, but because he wanted to show as an example to the other Muslims how the right marriage should be. Okay, I believe that he would probably marry her maybe a little bit older, probably not 18, probably, I don't know, when maybe a bit older, maybe 15 or 16, right? Okay, it's possible, okay? But he was constrained by his times. At the time, it was totally normal to marry at 6. Everyone else was doing it. It's neither a moral or immoral argument, okay? It was just something confined within the time period. And everyone else was doing it, okay? It's not a matter of morality here, okay? It's more of a matter of cultural norms and tradition, okay?
What's the title? What's the title of the debate?
We have 22 minutes left on the open discussion.
Okay, the Middle East, sorry, the Europeans were practicing this. So
what was the title? What was the title of the debate?
Was Muhammad's marriage to Aisha moral?
Yeah, for me,
what was the previous
immoral.
sentence? What was the previous sentence you just said about whether or not?
I said it was neither moral or immoral. That's all. Okay, neither moral or immoral. But if we are going to ask this question, okay, was Muhammad's marriage to Aisha moral? My answer is it was not immoral. Okay, that's all.
Perhaps separate from Muhammad, if we could just talk about anybody marrying a 9-year-old in any time period. What do you think about the actual moral impact of child marriage, I guess?
Like I said, I gave examples before, right? I think they were constrained by that time period also. Okay, and yeah, they want to basically it's all about survival of the fetus and extending their progeny. So of course they're going to marry young because the death rate, I mean the mortality rate is makes it so that they probably will not survive beyond the age of 40. Okay, so they needed to marry young in order to have, especially the kings of Europe and the kings of Egypt in the ancient times. So they know this, they knew this. They will probably die in battle, they probably die in war or famine or whatever it is. Okay, so they had to marry young. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Tom, if you don't want to respond to that, maybe you could talk a little bit about how you do determine proper ages for consent, maybe.
I mentioned that already. We use psychological development, whether or not they're cognitively capable to make decisions and rationally analyze consequences of certain decisions. And so once they are both physically and mentally capable, so we can also look at the physical harm done to bodies who are prepubescent when they do get pregnant and recognize that it destroys their bodies and causes them significant amounts of unnecessary harm. That's another reason why we don't allow those kinds of things. So both the physical and psychological development are the criterions that we use to establish whether or not it's consensual to have sex with someone.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, please.
Yeah. So he hasn't shown any evidence that Aisha's prepubescent body was destroyed during having this so-called consummation of measure, and whether Aisha was emotionally disturbed or emotionally destroyed during this marriage to the Prophet. He has not shown any evidence for this.
That part's not part of the definition. So whether or not you're emotionally destroyed doesn't actually make a difference. It's still pedophilia.
So you're just being biased.
No, I'm just being moral. I'm being moral. That's the word.
You just told me. You just said just now that having a prepubescent marriage will cause emotional destruction, destroy the bodies, blah blah blah. But show evidence for that it happened to Aisha.
No. I said that it doesn't make a difference whether or not it emotionally damages the child or not. It's still pedophilia. So even if it doesn't emotionally damage the child, it's still pedophilia.
Yeah. So you're just being stubborn.
No, I'm being moral.
Well, I mean, we can move to the Q&A, I suppose. Ladies and gentlemen, if you do have a question for the debaters tonight, super chats will go to the top of the list. We do have quite a list already, so it is building pretty quickly. But I can go ahead and move into that if you guys want to do that.
Yes, please.
All right. I got a super chat from, let me just quickly switch over to the timer so that we can keep track. 1 second, so sorry. Ladies and gentlemen, just want to let you know that our guests are linked in the description below. So if you like what you heard from either of them tonight, you can go ahead and click those links right now, and you'll be able to check out more from them. I also want to let you guys know that you should definitely click the like and subscribe button. We have more debates coming your way, and you don't want to miss those. And I now have my timer pretty much set. So we will go ahead and move to the Q&A. Sorry, was not prepared for that. So here we go. 35 minutes on the clock. First question from Thunderstorm 499. Don't both atheists and Muslims believe in geology with the stone of Mecca?
I don't know what that means.
I have no idea what the question means.
All right. Well, the next question is from Bitter Truth for $10. They say, Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 and intercourse when she was 9. She hasn't reached her puberty. Also, Muhammad was thinking, I'm not sure what this word is, while she was 6. Hadith say Muslim, he was sick.
I think that is factually, there's some mistakes there. The Prophet did marry Aisha when she was 6, and he waited until she reached puberty when she was 9. Okay, so if the Prophet was a leecher, was a pedophile, was someone who is sexually attracted to young girls, as you know, some people accuse him of, then he would have just consummated the marriage when she was 6. So why did the Prophet had to wait until she was 9 years old? Okay, until she reached puberty. Yeah.
Okay. From Melody Kate for $9.99, they say, you cite so many royals and use it to justify the Prophet's action. But according to you, he was God. So he should know better, right? He was not a regular person, or was he?
As Muslims, we don't believe that the Prophet ﷺ was God. Okay, that is a Christian belief. They believe that the Prophet Jesus ﷺ was God. Okay, I'm not a Christian. I don't believe that the Prophet was God incarnate walking on earth. He's a human. He's a regular human just like us, and he works between the most of his time and traditions. Okay, he's not going to go into us in a time machine and go to the future and say, oh look, pedophilia is wrong. Okay, or pedophilia is this is considered pedophilia, and then he comes back and then he does whatever he needs to do. No, he has to work within the constraints of his time. Okay,
got it. From Zagros Ozcan for $1.99, he says he saw Aisha in his dreams, so he fantasized too.
That was a vision from God. We as Muslims, we believe that is a vision from God. Originally, the Prophet ﷺ did not want to marry Aisha until he received that vision. Okay, right?
So either God is also a pedophile, or it was made up and Muhammad was a pedophile. So those are the two options: God pedophile or God made up. Those are the two options.
Do you want to take the last word on that?
Nah, he's just being insulting. That's all.
All right. From Bitter Truth, they say the father of Aisha was against the marriage. He said, I'm Muhammad's brother. She is niece. Muhammad said, he's not my real father. I can still marry Abu Bakr. Was sacred. Hadith said, even history books, Muslim, why lying?
Yeah, so the explanation for that is basically during the Quraysh in that time period, okay, in that era, the practice of the Arabs was that when someone considers you to be a brother, they consider, even though they're not blood brothers, but when someone considers you to be a brother, then they will treat you like a brother, like a blood brother. So that is why when the Prophet expressed his intention to marry Aisha, because Abu Bakr radhiyallahu anhu considered the Prophet to be his brother, he's almost like a blood brother. Therefore, he was surprised and he asked why would the Prophet marry his daughter, because they are like brothers, like blood brothers. So the Prophet ﷺ said that we are not brothers by blood, so it is all right. So this is actually an example by the Prophet to show that Islam only considers someone to be related only by blood, not by relative mores or by friendship or whatever. Only the bond of blood is stronger than anything else, right?
Got it. From Thunderstorm for $4.99, they say 9-year-olds is all kinds of wrong.
As I already explained in my opening speech, I mean, did that guy listen? Did that guy not listen to my opening statement? I've already defined what is a child, and I've already shown examples of European kings practicing this, which my opponent here says they are all pedophiles. Okay, that's just throwing everyone under the bus, all right? So
Throwing the pedophile
back
under
then,
the bus.
puberty is considered. Basically, back then, anyone who has reached puberty is an adult. That's pretty much it. And Aisha was an adult by all definitions of that time. Okay.
Got it. From Ozzy and the Gamer for $5, they say for Muslim apologists, it is not moral just because it was legal. Your quote unquote prophets were immoral. You are a relativist. It's not presentism, and they were ignorant.
I would say that the questioner he's also a presentist. He's just throwing everyone under the bus. I've already explained this.
Got it. From ES 1002 for €2, I think. For you Muslim apologists, if you lived in that time, would you copy him?
Yes, I would, of course, because he's my prophet. He's the best example of man.
Got it. From Mars Squeeze for $5, they say, where is Chris Hansen? That's a joke. From Industrial Nerd for $2, they say, little girls are okay, but not bacon.
I don't get what that means.
They're
I think
asking why it's okay to marry a prepubescent girl but not eat bacon.
Again, this goes back to my original statement. I think I don't want to repeat that again. I've repeated it so many times. Bacon is forbidden by the Quran. It's an explicit commandment. Okay, so yeah.
Got it. From Jupiter Darman for $5, they say, I feel like I've spent an hour listening to someone tell me why an adult marrying a 6-year-old was perfectly fine. Am I right? Love you, TJump,
Yep.
and God bless that chair.
Yep, that's about right.
Can I respond to that?
Sure.
Yeah. So it is something of a common practice by Islamophobes and trolls and this ignorance to repeat the claim that the Prophet married Aisha when she was 6 and consummated the marriage at 9. They forget that there's a 3-year gap between the marriage, between both this marriage and consummation. So they need to answer the question, why was it that the Prophet waited until she was 9 years old? Please answer that question.
I don't know.
From Hate
Still
Stairs for
pedophile,
$5, they say,
go ahead.
To the Muslim apologist, was it immoral to kill someone before Cain killed Abel?
Yes. Yes, it was.
Interesting. That looks like that's the end of my super chat list. So if you have a burning question for one of our tonight's debaters and you really want to make sure that it gets answered, then you can go ahead and fire into the old live chat and as a super chat. But if not, then I will go ahead and move on to the other questions. From Sahih Luke, question for TJump. You cherry-picked the hadith that says Aisha was 9, but why you didn't quote the hadith that mentioned she was 19 years old? Are you not suppressing the evidence?
There are none. There are none that said she was 19 when they consummated. That doesn't exist. Muslim apologist, is there such a hadith that says that?
Well, okay, so there are some scholars who not deny, they criticize the hadith which mentioned that Aisha was 6 years old and consummated the marriage at 9. So they look at other external evidence, like for example her sister. Okay, her sister was around 20 years old, and based on that understanding, therefore the age gap between her sister and Aisha was about a few years in difference. And since that particular hadith, at the same time which the Prophet allegedly married Aisha at the time, married Aisha at the time, the difference between the ages is such that it can't be possible for Aisha to be 6 according to this methodology. But I myself, I don't adhere to this because I believe that there are serious implications if we as Muslims use this methodology. So I'm just going with the literal evidence, and I believe in this hadith wholeheartedly that the Prophet ﷺ married Aisha when she was 6 years old and consummated the marriage at puberty when she was 9 years old. So I have no problems with it. Okay.
Got it. Super chat from Bitter Truth for $5. They say, Kaz, can you please arrange my debate with Muslim apologists on the same topic? And I would probably do that. Send me an email or link up with me on Twitter or whatever, and we can see what we can do.
Sure. Can I say something about that?
I'm sorry?
Can I say something
Sure,
about
sure.
that?
Please.
Yeah.
Please
so that guy who wants to debate me, I have a live stream every week, so you can jump on and talk to me about it. You're free to do so.
There you go.
I got a question from
he is
Don
linked in the
on my
description
end.
below.
I got a question from Don on my end. Would Muslim apologists allow his daughter to be married at the same age as Aisha?
If it's the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, then yes, of course, without a doubt, in the blink of an eye.
Did you say only for the Prophet? Is that what you just said?
Yes.
Got it. From Bob's note. I need to read it. Bob's note. Oh, I'm sorry. From ES1002 for €2. They want to know about your criminal record, Muslim apologists.
Okay, sure. I will explain that. All right. So 2 years ago, okay, I was my house was raided, and I was falsely accused of a crime, unfortunately, which is related to pedophilia, okay, possession of child pedophilia, okay. So the police, okay, the Malaysian police, these criminals, okay, called the Malaysian police, they raided my home without a warrant. They took my stuff, they took my desktop, okay. This is not the desktop that they took, but this is the exact room where they conducted the raid, okay. So I was arrested, okay, I was put in a lockup for 3 days, and then I was released, and then there was nothing ever since, okay. So to those people who keep repeating this lie over and over again, I do have a team of lawyers who are actually going to sue the Malaysian police over this, and it is in the works. I can't reveal any details, but if anyone in the chat repeats this lie over and over again, I will instruct my lawyers to hunt them down and sue them for libel. It's really that simple.
Got it. All right. From Kwani Upstate for $5, they say, if the Quran is perfect and needs no correction or editing, then does the Muslim apologist agree with marrying young girls today, or does he disagree?
Sorry, could you repeat the question again? I couldn't hear.
Sure. If the Quran is perfect and needs no correction or editing, then does the Muslim apologist agree with marrying young girls today, or does he disagree?
The Quran says that women can be married off at puberty, and if our authority, our political authorities allow for it, like for example, there's many countries where the age of consent is 14 years old, 15 years old, sometimes 18, sometimes 21. So it depends on your locality. If the authorities allow for it, then why not?
Got it. From Jeremy Nolan. What age is someone not a child, TJump?
When they were an adult, so like say like 16 to 20, something like that.
Got it. From Don Fullman for $5, they say, for
Can I
Tom
answer
Jump.
that? Can I answer that? Okay,
Go ahead.
so in my country, okay, someone is considered to be an adult when he or she reaches 21 years old. So I guess anyone else who marries below that age is a pedophile, right?
No, pedophile is about prepubescent. That only applies to 9 to 12.
But you just said that someone who reaches the age of 16 is an adult. In my country, it's considered to be a child. So what's your standard?
Pedophile only applies to prepubescent. So that's
You're not answering my question. I'm saying that in my country, in accordance to legal laws here, you only reach the age of an adult when you are 21 years old.
Okay.
So is anyone below the age of 21 a child?
Yes.
No,
not based on your country, no.
So it changes according to locality, right?
No, I think it's objective facts. It's not based on society at all.
Never mind, I rest my case.
Got it. From Don Fullman for $5, they say, for Tom Jump, would you allow your daughter to be married at the same age in the time of Muhammad?
No.
Got it. From Yeshua the King for $4.99, they say, reliance of the traveler and the Hadiyah are Islamic books that allow marriage to a 9-year-old who hits puberty even today if Islam rules the land.
I've already actually talked about the reliance of a traveler in my debate with the Apostate Prophet. I said that the reliance of traveler is not reliable. It's not considered to be something authoritative. We have other authoritative works like the Muwatta, like Subuh Salam. Okay, there's so many books. Okay, there's so many Bulughul Maram. There's so many other authoritative books in the Islamic world, and reliance on the traveler is not one of them.
Are you saying that he's wrong and that the reliance of the traveler does not agree with you?
Basically, I'm saying that the reliance of the traveler is not considered to be authoritative. That's all in the Muslim world. Ivan.
Got it. Okay, from Mark for $20. Thank you so much, Mark. God/Allah, Judaism to Islam, is inherently wrong, morally speaking, 9 out of 10 times. So how do you justify his commands?
I mean, he doesn't give any real examples. I guess I'll just answer it generally. Okay, so as Muslims, we believe that God throughout the ages sent down His messengers to proclaim the message of truth to the worship of the one true God of Abraham. And in each time period, in each situation, there are differences in the laws and mores. Like for example, Musa alayhi salam, he would be more militaristic because the situation commands for it. During Jesus's time, he would be more soft. He will be more apologetic because of the situation that calls for it. He can't go against the Roman Empire. And during the time of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, the laws are also different because it suits the time and the time period and the situation. And we also believe that so with the coming of the Prophet, the last messenger of God, therefore the laws are applicable throughout all times. So yeah.
Got it. All right. From Miss Stella for $5, they say, so are we just deciding on what our morals are based on that the law allows?
I'm just giving examples, you see, because my opponent, he's shifting the goalposts, he keeps changing his position. Okay, yeah. So you can just watch back the recording and see what he has done.
Got it. From ES 1002 for €2. What if Aisha hit puberty after 9 years old?
Then the Prophet would have waited until she reached puberty. Let's say if she reached puberty at 14, then the Prophet would have waited until she was 14 years old. Because you cannot consummate the marriage before you reach puberty. Basically, that's it. Yeah.
Got it. From Yeshua the King for $1.99, they say, Islam proves the authenticity of the reliance. Or
No, it doesn't.
Makkah. I'm not sure. He may have been ISLAMQA.
Yeah, the question doesn't make any sense anyway, because it's like putting the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken.
Got it. From Notion Slave for $4.99, they say, have some self-awareness and quit debating when you have pedophilia charges. This is embarrassing.
As I said earlier, my lawyers are on standby. If I were to, if you repeat the lie against me, I will instruct my lawyers to sue you for libel. So that's it.
Got it. From Nix for $10, they say, so if your country recognizes adulthood at 21, how can you say that a child is capable of making the very adult decision to have a sexual relationship with anyone, much less an adult?
But you see, in Malaysia, is a bit unique. I think this is also practiced in other countries anyway, but I am speaking in the context of Malaysia. So let's say if someone who is 12 years old, they for some reason he or she wants to get married, they will need to petition the courts, and the court here will hear the case and listen to it and decide whether they are suited for marriage. If the court says that they are not allowed to be married due to other reasons, even though if they may have reached puberty at 12 years old, then it will not continue. It's really that simple.
Got it. Okay, so that's the end of the super chats, ladies and gentlemen. If you have any more, go ahead and send them in. From Envix, they ask, they didn't allow adult women to consent. Why would they allow a 9-year-old to consent?
As I've already said earlier, I think I've already repeated this so many times. Okay, the parents of Aisha did not object to the marriage; they consented. Okay, and the Prophet waited until she reached puberty, and she went into his household, if Aisha wanted to reject this marriage, she could have said no. She could have been, because she already reached puberty, she's considered to be an adult, fit enough to make her own decisions.
Got it. Matt Lee for $2. They say cringe. And then another question from Free Your Mind. Modern day debate question for TJump. Is it morally acceptable for AI pedo porn movie or a game?
Pictures being generated that aren't of real people, I don't really care about. They're not immoral, no.
Got it. From Yeshua the King for $1.99, they say Islam Q&A website proves the book to be authentic.
I don't care what Islam Q&A says, okay? Because we don't have the translation of the Reliance of the Travel even in my mother tongue here in Malaysia or in this region for that matter. And we have so many translations of other works in my mother tongue. So it's not authoritative enough to be. If it's not authoritative enough to be considered for translation, then it's useless, right?
Got it. From Ames McDougall, did Aisha's parents sell her off?
The short answer is no.
Okay. From Free Your Mind, what's your take on the low birth crisis? Women working a factory, and do you think we need women to give birth and men to father a family to keep the population going?
No, who cares about the population? If the population goes down, oh well, it's not a bad thing. As long as we have AI to make up for the work, it doesn't matter if we have population or not.
Can I answer that?
Got it. Sure.
Okay, so I believe in the family unit. Okay, so I think I've already said this so many times, even during past debates, that Islam promotes the family unit and ensures that the human race continues. Therefore, it encourages marriages and the continuance of the line, okay, the biological line of humans, and you do it while ensuring that the man is as the leader of the family and the woman as the leader of the household. Yeah.
Okay. From Jacob Grosek. Question for Muslim apologist. Of course, from a Muslim perspective, Aisha's marriage can be seen to be moral. But why should people who don't hold a Muslim morality accept this to be moral?
Because marriages at puberty was considered to be normal back then. Okay, so yeah, I mean the standard for adulthood was puberty and the conditions of the time period. Okay, it's a combination of factors. You can't just simply accuse someone of being a pedophile just because he or she got married at or consummated a marriage or have sexual relations when she was 9 years old. How do you determine whether 9 years old is below is mentally incompetent or whatever it is that spilled? Yeah.
Because it's before puberty. That's the answer. That's how you do it.
Yeah, but I just said that Aisha reached puberty when she was 9. You just said that
9 to 12 is all before puberty. Puberty is after 12.
She reached her puberty. She had a menses at 9. Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right. Next question from ES1002 for €2. I think Aisha couldn't have a baby due to fistula.
I would think that this I wouldn't know about the medical condition of Aisha. Because the Prophet's wives after Khatijah never did have any child from the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Okay, so but they had children from their previous marriages. Okay, except for Aisha, of course, as I mentioned that Aisha was a virgin, so of course not. But that being said, I believe that this is with divine ordinance, that there is a reason why the Prophet did not have any children after his marriage with Khatijah. Okay, by the way, his marriage with Khatijah, he had about 5 or 6 children with her. Okay,
with Aisha.
With Aisha, none. Yeah, none.
Oh, do you know anything about this fistula?
It's a medical condition where skin fuses together. I don't know what it is related to Aisha or how it would relate to Aisha.
I'm just wondering, did she actually have something like that?
How
No,
should I
not
know?
that I know of. There
Is
is
it
nothing
described somewhere in
mentioned
the
of
hadith
that in the
or
records.
Quran?
No,
Okay.
there's no hadith that mentions this. Yeah.
Strange. From Bitter Truth for $5, they say Sahih Bukhari 5236. Aisha hasn't reached her puberty age while Muhammad intercoursed. Aisha Muslim, why are you lying?
I would say that person is lying because we have all the records that say that she reached puberty when she was 9 years old, and she had a menses when she was 9 years old.
Got it. Next question from Mark for $5. They say didn't answer the question. Just use the Old Testament, New Testament, and the Quran to back up the same documents.
I don't understand what that means. I don't understand the question. Sorry.
I don't remember, Mark. But okay, let's move on. Next question is from Learn Every Day, Seek Knowledge. Youngest girls who get pregnant at what age?
Health? You mean safely? I'm guessing.
I mean, I know that I saw a report of one, like, I think 5-year-old that got pregnant once, but that was because she was being molested by her father. Anyways, from Mark for $5, they say, TJump, sometimes I don't agree with you, but here I'm on your side.
That's right. I'm always correct.
No, you're not.
Got it. From Pro Debates, at what age do women go through puberty? Can he cite a source on this? I'm not sure who they're talking about.
I can. I have many sources. Actually, on my website, I actually cited many sources where women reach puberty faster in extreme climates. Like, for example, if you are in the Arctic or if you are in a desert or in the Sahara Desert, then you will reach puberty earlier than other people in the region, in other regions. Okay, so unfortunately I don't have the facts and figures here, but you can go to my website. It's called Bismika Awahuma. Okay, it's BISMIKA ALLAHUMA.org, and you can look up on that article on Aisha. I actually wrote an article on this 20 years ago. Okay, and I've laid out the facts and figures about this marriage. Yeah.
Wow. From Oscar Davies, Muslim apologists, there's something called pastism.
So he's making fun of his presentism, saying that if you judge something by the present, you're using presentism. If you're judging something to be okay by the past would be pastism, and equally as fallacious.
Never heard of pastism.
It's a parody. It's a parody of your argument.
From Unknown or Yeshua the King, is Muslim apologist a Salafi?
Yes.
What does that word mean?
Got it. I don't know.
No, I'm asking Muslim apologists. What does that mean? What does that word
Oh,
mean?
it means that someone adheres to the Quran and the Sunnah and follow the ways of the Salaf, meaning the first 3 generations of Muslims.
Gotcha.
All right. From Pro Debates, they say, if a child goes through puberty at 6, would he be okay with someone back then having intercourse with them?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
If a child goes through puberty at 6 or earlier, I would ask, would he be okay with someone back then having intercourse with them?
Yes, of course. Why not? Back then. Okay, back then. The keyword here being back then. Okay.
That doesn't make it any better. It's equally as bad, no matter what time frame you put it. I don't know why you keep saying back then as if it makes it less bad.
Present.
From Bitter Truth for $5, they say, I text Sahih Bukhari hadith where Aisha said she hasn't reached puberty, reference 5236, Muslim, why keep lying?
Then he needs to show the evidence, okay? Because I've already answered this so many times, okay? So there's nothing else to add to it, okay? If he just wants to deny it, I mean, what else can I say, right?
Got it. From Saint Benevolent, is it moral to have sex slaves in 2023?
I guess it depends on the situation. I guess today we don't practice that now, so it's not a moral or immoral discussion. Okay, I think this would be a separate topic entirely. This is about slavery per se, but we don't practice it, so it's moot. Okay, the question is actually moot because we're not practicing it now. So
The answer is no, it is not moral. It would be immoral to have sex slaves at any time period.
From Saint Beloved is no, I'm sorry. I think I just read that. From also, oh, we got a super chat from ES1002 for €2. Hashtag keep men away from children.
yeah, he can go falafel himself.
From also Lamo. For Muslim Apologist, how old was Aisha when Allah showed her to Muhammad in a dream?
I guess 6.
Got it. From Jack Nicholson for $5, they say, does Muslim Apologist believe puberty defines adulthood? Does he know the prefrontal cortex required for planning and executive function still develops into the 20s?
Yeah, to answer the first question, yes. To answer the second question, I would say that it depends on your situation, your condition, because back then things were extreme. So obviously the prefrontal cortex would develop faster. Okay, today we are living times, yeah, basically I'm relaxing in front of my monitor. I mean, back then, do you think they would have time to do this? They will probably be working in the fields or going to war. Do you really think that they will have time to wait until they are in the 20s for their prefrontal cortex to develop?
Okay. Super chat from Bitter Truth for $2. They say religion based upon lie. Muslim Apologist just proved it.
To that, I will answer without lies, Islam thrives.
Okay. From also Lamo for no, I'm sorry, I read that one. I think that is the whole list, ladies and gentlemen. I think we're at the end. We have a couple more minutes, so if you do want to send your super chat in right now, it would be a great time to do so. Looks like something is. Yep, I got them all. So, last words, thoughts before we wrap it up, guys?
Yeah, I'll let you go.
Nope, I'm good.
All right. So,
all right. So
ladies and gentlemen,
can I wrap it up? What about me?
I'm sorry.
Can I wrap it up?
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Sure. So yeah, I've already presented several points regarding Aisha's marriage. Although I may, I hope that TJump, I hope you won't take offense to what I say. I apologize in advance if I hurt your feelings or whatsoever. Okay, if we have, I know we're going to have serious disagreements over this, okay. But basically my position is that committing the fallacy of presentism, okay, does not make the Prophet's marriage to Aisha immoral. Okay, so there is this has been practiced, throughout the ages before the 20th century. It's all about survival of the fittest. Okay, extending the progeny. Okay, and the mortality rate also factors in. So this is something very normal back then. Of course, today we don't do this because we have so many reasons not to do this. Okay, of course we have the problem of pedophilia and all these problems, like these sexual crimes, these degenerates, right? So of course we don't do this. But that being said, back then there's no such thing. So things were different back then. Yeah. So that is all I have to say.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Double check to make sure we didn't get any more. Looks like not. Good. Okay. Oh, wait, no. From ES1002 for €2 to say, Menj, if you were in a war, would you take a kid as a slave?
You're talking about present times, and no, of course not.
All right. And from Yeshua the King for $4.99, they said, you threw your Salafi scholars under the bus by rejecting the Islam Q&A and their ruling on the reliance of the traveler. Study more or stop lying.
I don't bow down to scholars who don't go against the Sunnah, right? So they're not fallible. Okay, with all due respect to Islam Q&A, they may have differences of opinion, and that's up to them. But I don't agree with them. So if I don't agree with them, it doesn't mean I'm throwing all scholars under the bus, right?
All right. Well, thank you so much, gentlemen, for this spirited debate. Thank you to everybody in the live chat who sent in questions and super chats and elevated the conversation. We really appreciate it. Thank you again to the moderators and everybody who helped to keep everything under control. And once again, thank you to the debaters who are the lifeblood of the show. So share it if you want to spread it. Like it if you loved it, and subscribe. We have many more debates coming your way you don't want to miss. Our guests are linked in the description below. There's an after show linked there as well. That'll be on my channel soon. Thank you again, everybody. Have a great night. And remember to keep sifting out the reasonable from the unreasonable. Have a great night.